Economist here. So, today I had a great conversation with Lumberjack Landlord Matthew. If you haven't been over to Lumberjack Landlord's YouTube channel, I would definitely go over and check it out. I highly recommend if any of you are interested in real estate or the housing market, the mortgage market. I tell you, the Lumberjack Landlord is a wealth of information. So anyway, I had a great conversation with him, recorded it in a Zoom meeting. Should have that up for you guys probably later this week. I thought I was going to do it earlier in the week, but we might postpone that one till Friday. And then, have something special for you guys on Friday and have that interview posted for you. Today, after the interview, we went up to the peninsula, up into Long Beach area over in Washington, and had lunch at Scallywags, fish and chip place. I can't remember the address and I forgot to write it down, so I'm sorry, guys, but it's really easy to find. It's right on the main drag. Best fish and chips on the peninsula, I'm sure of it. Best fish and chips around. Prices were awesome. Everybody was absolutely delighted with their meal. So I cannot recommend Scallywags enough to anybody who is going to be in the area and looking for some good fish and chips. And you're going to be on the Long Beach Peninsula over in Washington, then go check out Scallywags. So that's what I did today. Oh, and the Cottage Bakery. Forgot. The Cottage Bakery also. That's the other place I went to. And they have the best donut over there called the Devil Dog. It's like an eclair kind of thing. Oh gosh, the best donut I've ever had. And so I bought one of those to bring home for later this evening. Anyway, got a few articles and I'm going to leave down there in the description for you guys. One of them is talking about the banks and how they're not paying on savings. And I hear other people have said something about these banks are just greedy. They're not, they're charging a higher interest rate, but they're not paying the depositors any money. And it does make sense that they would be greedy for it because banks are in it for the money, but you also got to understand why it is that they are doing it. They have the opportunity to do it, so that's what they're going to do. Now, banks really don't need people's money to operate. They operate off of the loans. And whether they're generating loans and selling them or just collecting the interest rate off the loans, that's really where the bank's money is made. And when you loan your money to the government, or not to the government, but to the bank, that's ultimately what you're doing, is you're loaning it to them. You become an unsecured depositor. So they get to do with that money anything they want. But they don't loan it out. That's something that a lot of people are misunderstanding from the banks. They don't actually loan out your deposits. What the bank does is they use your deposits to help profit them more. And so if you could kind of understand a balance sheet, the bank's balance sheet, they have assets and liabilities. Now the assets are all the loans, all the loans that we have taken out that we owe back. That's their assets. Their liabilities is the money, right, that they've handed you. So now for us, it's kind of weird because we look at it the other way. The money is our asset and the loan is our liability. But for the bank, it's the opposite. Now, really, they don't need, like I said, the depositor's money to loan that money out. They can go and borrow that money and use the loan as collateral in order to get the money to loan to you. So they're just collecting the interest rate along the way. And what ends up happening is the money they borrowed using your loan, the loan that you've taken out as collateral, that ends up being the liability on their balance sheet, and then your loan is the asset. And so now they're just got a balance sheet. They're perfectly balanced. Now, think about it. If you have a loan that is now paying you an interest rate, and you have this balance sheet with assets and liabilities on it, and now the assets are all the loans that are paying an interest rates, and the liabilities are all those dollars that are out there floating that you need back. Now, think about what happens if depositors put their money in with the bank. Those are liabilities coming back to the bank that they now hold on to, and it's bringing those liabilities down and their assets up. It makes the banks more profitable. So that's really where the banks get a lot of the depositors' money for, is to be more profitable with the rest of the loans that they have going on out there, but they don't really need it. So when you think about like these banks right now and sitting on a ton of stimulus savings, like people got stimulus checks and didn't spend it, they're still sitting on these high savings, and the banks don't really need that. Like they can loan money to the government at 4%. Why would they give you anything if you're just holding it there regardless? Like they're not asking for money. They don't need it. Like they're not interested. And so if you're putting your money with them, that's actually almost a nuisance in a sense because they have too much money on there. And if you're going to put your money with them, they're not going to give you a whole lot of interest for it. So this is really where the bank is now profiting a lot from it, because now they can pretty much have your money on deposit that you're not really getting paid for, and they can loan all that money out to the government, which is a guaranteed return, and they're getting like, in some cases, what, up to 4% or so. So that's a pretty good deal for them. And like to think about them holding your deposits as the treasury. So not only are they holding your money, not paying you for it, but then they hold your money in a treasury, which is almost as liquid as the dollar. So they're not really loaning it out. All right. So pretty interesting how these banks are like sitting in a position right now where they can be extremely profitable during this time, considering that they don't have to pay their depositors any kind of return on their savings. And that sucks for savings because, here during a time when you have high interest rates, you would think that the saver would be rewarded for it. But no, you still have to turn into a speculator and put your money towards like a treasury or do something else. You can't just put it towards a safe savings where you can just go and withdraw your money at any given time and hope to get any kind of return on that kind of placement of your cash. So they're still forcing you to lock it up in some sort of investment. Anyway, that was my opinion on that one. What was the other? Oh, the article about the spending. Right now, this is something that I found interesting because they're talking about like spending has increased year over year. I again, I should have wrote down the numbers. I'm sorry, but the article is down in the description for you guys. But they're talking about spending this year and how it has increased year over year. Now, I think about how they judge this. They judge it by how many dollars are spent, right? But they don't really necessarily judge by how many items are sold. And that's something to think about. Like, how much inventory rollovers are actually happening or how much money is actually being spent. Now, I don't know how they necessarily, like, I don't know if they could define it between like what would be a necessity and what would be like a requirement or what am I trying to say, a luxury item. Um, but when it comes to like consumer spending, I think they just pretty much jumble it all together, right? And so you think about like what a necessity costs now and it going up and the requirement for people to buy those things. It's not like the consumer is there by choice, like saying, hey, I can't, like, I'm really excited about being a spender now. They're probably spending buying the same amount they did last year, or maybe even less than they did last year. But because they're spending it, or because those items have gone up so much, they're now spending an excessive amount of money that makes the consumer seem like they are now more prevalent this year than they were last year. Did I get all that right? Anyway, what are you guys talking about? 111 of you, 37 thumbs up. Go and hit that thumbs up, guys, and we'll get this YouTube algorithm to take this video and spread it around for more people to come into the comments. Question: why do big banks do poorly in a recession, or do regional banks far better? I don't know. There's a lot of consolidation of banks that happened during the recession, so I have a feeling that the big banks do better. And besides, they have like first access to the money too, and they're like too big to fail, right? They're, how do they term that, systemically? Um, I don't know, something, they have a name for it. I can't remember right offhand, but it's basically saying they're too big to fail. Systemically risky, something. Anyway, one of you will think of it and put it in the comments. All right, I work for a bank, so I, for one, am okay with any and all deceptive practices banks use to make money. It's not deceptive. There ain't nothing deceptive about it. I mean, it's just the way it is. Most people don't understand it. And and because you don't understand it, you just go to the most logical thing, and that's because they're greedy bastards, and that's like easy enough to say and understand. So it's harder to understand. It's just like, this is how they're going to make money. They're going to make a lot of money for a short amount of time, and then after that, they're probably not going to do very well when things start to go the other way, and all the hell breaks out in recessions, and nobody's taking out any loans or anything. All right. If CBDC happens, gold goes to the moon. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. How many people do you know? Like, I know a few people who buy gold. I know a few people who have gold. I know a few people who would be willing to buy my gold. But I don't know a lot of people who would be willing to do that. And that's really where you would think, like, okay, so if this is going to go to the moon, what would have to happen? People would really have to want it. Like, everybody would have to want it. Now, I'm not saying that it ain't going to happen, right? That gold and silver can't just shoot up. Because you think about it, like, I mean, I've said it before. There is literally such a small amount of silver on this planet that if everybody was to go and try and acquire just 2 or 3 ounces of silver, it would completely wipe out the entire world's supply, production, everything. If everybody just tried to go and get like 2 or 3 ounces of it. But nobody cares about trying to acquire silver. Nobody knows about silver, and nobody would even know that silver is even a thing. And I mean, I hate to say it, but like I've seen people who, like, okay, for example, my wife had worked for a major grocery chain, and somebody had come in and bought beer and cigarettes and used cash and $2 silver, silver eagles, right? And dropped them as and spent them as dollars. They had no clue of what they had, right? Now, that kind of thing happens because people just don't understand silver and gold. Now, if that wasn't the case, if everybody understood silver and gold, I think the value of it would be much, much higher. But everybody would much rather have cash in their pocket, which is really strange to think. I mean, I understand having cash right now because I think buying opportunities are coming to the future, but it's a short-term bet on cash right now. It's not a long-term bet, right? Silver miners would ramp up production with spot price increase. I thought about that one too, all nighter. But that's something like to think about, because the majority of silver that is mined today comes from byproduct of gold mining and copper mining, lead mining, nickel mining, stuff like that. It's not really silver. There are silver mines out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are places that are a concentration of silver that is the primary metal that they're trying to go for. But for the most part, the majority of silver is a byproduct of other metal mining. And if that's the case, even if silver was to go up in price, it's not like you can really ramp up production. There are some mines that you can fire up and try and get a little bit more into the world supply or into the world production. But as far as like the world production of silver ramping up at the same time, that would have to ramp up all the production of all the rest of the other metals, since silver is the byproduct of that kind of mining. That's true. There's few silver miners. Yeah. Dude, I'm in Southport in Las Vegas. The hot dogs were 75 cents a few years ago, $1.50 now. It's like 100% increase. Yeah. It is. But silver was $50 an ounce in 1980, and it's $20 an ounce right now. So you're talking hot dogs, and I'm talking silver. I don't know, man. I mean, there's reasons why silver. I mean, I know why the silver price is at the way it is. It's a paper derivatives market that's causing it to happen. For those who don't understand that, there's like 150, who knows how many ounces of paper silver for every ounce of silver that's out there. So if you can imagine that, if you're a silver investor and you want to buy into silver, but you don't really want to take the physical silver because that's kind of a pain. You got to store it, secure it, find somebody to buy it from you, whatever. But then you can go and buy like a paper silver, or like a silver ETF, where it's like a symbol of silver. So if all those silver investors who have purchased into these paper silver, like, cashed out of their paper silver and bought physical, it would wipe out the silver supply instantly, and then you would find your 1,000-ounce silver. Because what would end up happening is that if people were that like adamant about like cashing out their paper silver and then switching that into physical silver and like buying it at any price, like it was like the silver vigilante kind of movement or something like that, where they're going to do this, then you could find where there's going to be somebody who is trying to produce a cell phone or a computer or something out there, and they're going to need that silver, and they're not going to be able to find it because the people who are cashing in their paper are buying the physical. Well, then you could find where those people who are in need of that stuff for production will pay just about any price of it, because really they just need a small piece of it. And so the actual input cost going into their product, even if silver was really expensive, wouldn't really cause the price of their product to become unpurchasable. Like, what am I trying to say here? So that is a scenario that really could happen, but everybody still buys into paper silver because silver physical is a pain, right? Anyway, moving on. Hit the like button. Yes, please do so. When you come into the chat, there's 190 of you and 74 likes. We could definitely be up over 100 right now. There's a derivative in every commodity and a derivative of every derivative. Yeah, that is so true, all-nighter. You know, that's something to think about. Like somebody asked me about what hypothecation and re-hypothecation is. And that is a really funny thing to talk about, re-hypothecation. Remember that John Corzine, what was that banker's name? Anyway, he got all mixed up in a wrong way bet on government bonds from the hypothecation and re-hypothecation, and he kept talking about it. Nobody understood what that meant. So I'm going to give you kind of like a basic idea on re-hypothecation. If you can imagine that you need to borrow money, right? And so you don't have any money, you need $10,000. So you got a really nice watch. You got a $10,000 watch, and you go to your guy and you hand over your watch as collateral, right? And you get your $10,000, right? And now the guy doesn't really want your watch, right? Because, physically taking the watch might mean that he has to secure it and stuff like that. He just wants to know that you have this contract for this watch, right? And so that you can use it as your collateral. Now, I get the $10,000. I have my watch, right? I have this contract that I owe on it. And that goes over to my buddy who gives me $10,000 for it. And now he at some point says, well, I need $10,000 because I done gave it all away. I don't really have $10,000 and I don't really have a watch, but I do have this contract that is kind of hypothetically a watch. I mean, it's not really mine, but it's hypothetically mine. I can use that as collateral to get a loan. And so on down the line it goes. Rehypothecation after rehypothecation after rehypothecation, all based off of this one original loan. So you kind of think, like, what happens when something breaks in the middle of it? Like, how do you unwind all this stuff, And so, anyway, that's what ended up happening to John Corzine. How do we get stuck on hypothecation, Hey, thank you very much, DC, for the $5. I really appreciate that. Astoria, just seen the Goonies home go on sale out there. Two things. I love it out there now. Uneducated Economist and the Goonies. Hey, how about this? DC, how about we do this? You guys should start a GoFundMe for the Uneducated Economist to buy the Goonies house, and then I'll do podcasts from the Goonies house. How does that sound? Like, wouldn't that be cool? They only want like $1.5 million, and I'm like, I don't know, 1.48 or so away. I don't know. I'm like a long ways away from $1 billion. So there's no way that I could get it, and there's no way that I could ever get a loan for it. But, I mean, do the numbers. If we started a GoFundMe, then we could have a really awesome place that I could do like the Uneducated Economist from this really iconic house here in Astoria. All right. Brian Dupree, $5. Thank you very much. Handyman here. I've resisted using banks. Taxation is theft, but I raised prices and new high and clients demand check payment. Mo money, mo problems. Yeah, yeah, I could see like I try and use cash as often as I can when I'm dealing with small businesses. Like what they do with that cash is none of my business, you know? That's the way I feel about it. So anytime I can ever like, use cash at a small business, then I do. And I don't ask for receipts or anything else like that, unless it's obviously something I need a receipt for. But for the most part, I'm just trying to get, like, hey, this is your money. You do what you want. I got my stuff. All right. Go fund for the headliner. No, like I'm gonna get a new headliner. Don't get me wrong. It's gonna be attached to a 2023 Camaro. All right. I make sure when I buy PMs, it's with currency I don't plan on needing for years. Got to account for the premium both ways. Yeah, I agree. And that's the way I kind of look at precious metals as well. Like, I don't really look at the price that I paid for. Like, there was a time when I used to know exactly, like, I paid this much and that much. I knew exactly how much. But I don't really look at it that way any longer. I just kind of look at how many I have. Like maybe timing into the future, like, if a good deal happens to come up, like, you just kind of add more to the stack. But yeah, I don't really think about like exactly how much I have in like silver value on a daily basis. Like I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. In fact, I don't even look at the silver spot price unless it moves dramatically and I'm trying to figure out what caused that move. I don't even really look at silver price. Maybe once a week. Love your down to earth, authentic style, Yui. Yeah, you bet, Brian. Thank you for the $2. Um, I mean, what else am I gonna be but authentic? Like, I don't. I started off this channel, this broke and $20,000 in debt, just just recovering from alcohol. Like, I mean, everything about this channel is me trying to grow as a person. So, I mean, there's nothing I can't fake it. Like, I mean, they say fake it till you make it, right? So I'm faking being a famous economist who goes around the country speaking on stage. That's what I'm trying to be a faker at. Right? I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I try really hard to be just the person that I am. And I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Lots of laughs. I keep track of my DCA too till I stopped caring. The dollar cost averaging. That's the DCA, by the way, guys. Um, Banks are not your friend. Well, I think Robert Kiyosaki would disagree, right? You got good debt and bad debt out there. Now, if you sucker yourself into some bad debt, all right, been there. Anyhow, but if you got good debt and bad debt out there, and if you can figure out a way that you can take out a loan for a piece of property that's not only going to pay for itself, but then pay you as well, I mean, that's pretty cool, and you can't really do that without a bank, right? How can one determine the true value of precious metals until we get a valuation of something other than worthless fiat dollars? Um, I don't know. Like, I mean, you really can't. Like, there's no like that's why I actually really like silver, is because the more they do this, like, at $20 an ounce, like, silver is super undervalued, right? Even if it was like $30 or $50 an ounce. I mean, it was $50 an ounce back in the early 80s. It was $50 an ounce in 2011. $50 an ounce is a very reasonable price for silver. It's at $20 an ounce right now. Even if you were paying $30 an ounce, that seems reasonable to me. Now, I think about that. That gives silver very little downside risk to me. Like, it can go down. It's never gone to zero, right? But the idea of silver going down from here is difficult to try and wrap your head around. Like, it's just like, I don't think so. Like, I don't see silver going down. That's like the place you want to go. You want to find money to go, like, you want to put money towards things that are undervalued, underappreciated, valuable, useful, you know. I mean, it's just like in fact, I can't even think of anything other than dollars that I would rather be in than silver. maybe some cryptocurrencies on a lesser extent. There might be some stocks out there that people probably would want to pick and get into, some recession kind of stocks that they are betting on. I don't know what they are. I don't feel it. Like, I feel some cryptocurrencies, I feel silver, I feel cash. And like, I know a lot of people coming off of what we just experienced with all this inflation, that cash is like the dumbest place to be. I don't know. Watch the dollar index. Look at the other countries around the world who are loving the dollar, who like would love to have dollars right now. They hate the dollar in the sense that it's destroying them. They took out too many loans in dollars, and now they're having a liquidity crunch crisis where they can't find the dollars to pay back their debts, and it's killing them. Yeah, that sucks. I mean, how many people do you know were like that? They took out far too many loans. 2-car loans, house loan, vacation loans, credit card loans, all the loans out there. It's just like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. Like, no wonder why there's depression levels that are ripping across this country. I mean, if everybody has these student loan debts piled on top of it, it's just like, that's a depressive place to be. You know, you think you work so hard just to, be buried up to your eyeballs in it. You look around at the people who don't have debts or have very minimal debts, and they have like a different attitude. Like, look at the car I drive, right? 99 Toyota Corolla. I could go buy a brand new car. I could go buy the 2023 Camaro if I wanted to, but I don't really want that payment. And I really like going up to Scallywags and to Cottage Bakery to go get donuts. I like going to the Funland. That's the other thing we did. We went and played some arcade games. I love pinball, right? So we went and played pinball. Like, all those things would be very difficult for me to do if I had a brand new car payment. Like, I would say, like, to the kids, hey, you want to go do something? Go look at the car in the garage, right? We were talking about this with Lumberjack Landlord. That's what he told me, when I brought that up. But we were talking about that same thing, spending your money on a vehicle. I mean, I can understand, like, if you had a long drive, like if you were in your car a lot, then yeah, I could understand driving a nice vehicle. But we talk about this every time. Or if you're trying to pick up girls, right? If you're trying to be like, you know, pick up shallow girls or something like that who don't really care about who you are, but just care about your money, and then you can show off your car to them. What's next? All right. DC $2. Any thoughts on oil prices this month? Man, we talked about oil before, and I really wish I did have somebody who was like in the oil game. Like, if you are an expert in oil, you want to just remain anonymous, then, that's cool. But I could really use like somebody who is like definitely in the know, like an uneducated economist, oil field worker, right? That's what I would like to have. Somebody who understands the industry, somebody who understands macroeconomics, and somebody who is boots on the ground, who really does know what's going on. And I would love to interview somebody like that. So if you know anybody, or if you are that person, send me an email, uneducatedeconomist@gmail.com. Because I'm going to do more interviews. So I want to do more interviews with more YouTubers. Those are I would rather do, I'm not saying rather do interviews with YouTubers. I like doing interviews with other YouTubers, collaborating with them, because it makes their information funner to go back to. Like, so you come on my channel, you spit out some information, my viewers really like it, then they go over to their channel and enjoy the content that they have created for, however many months or years that they've been doing it. And that's really a lot of fun. I can find somebody who's an expert in the field, but then we can only get the information that is at the moment. And, there's a lot of stuff that, like, later on after the conversation that I have with people, that I'll think, oh man, I should have asked them this or that. And, I mean, I can always text people for information, but trying to put it into a video, like, on the spot isn't always, like, that easy. So it's fun to have like other collaborators, other YouTube content providers to interview. So anyway, I'm just babbling on about that. Let's move on to something real to talk about. All right, 1,000 lumber. Let's see, 1,000 lumber is 420 going to 350. Zero collapse this year or next long. Okay, well, okay. So let's see. What's your name? And Separity and Separity 68. Okay, so basically we're saying 420 per thousand, and it's going to 350. Zero collapse this year or next. Long stock market going back to all-time highs. So 420 going to that 350. You think it's going to 350 per thousand? I don't think so. I think anything under 400 per thousand in the mills will just simply stop producing. They'll go into curtailments and they will start tightening up the inventory. Eventually, that price will find its bottom. And if it does hit 350, it'll be very short-lived for a very short time. Well, I guess that's what short-lived means. But anyway, it won't last long. And then it'll be back up to well above 400. In fact, it would shoot up to 500 because there would be a lack of inventory out there. Now, I just did an interview with Keta from Madison's Lumber, and that's coming up here. We're probably going to post that one earlier in the week. So Keta from Madison's Lumber Report, absolutely brilliant information. Like I wish I was interviewing Keta back during like the big run up to 1700 per thousand, because like the information that she has is so good. It's just incredible. So I did this interview with her, and I tell you, when she talks about like mill curtailments and talks about like the different regions, what's happening at these different mills, I have never found anybody to talk to who is more insightful for all aspects of this industry than Keta is. So anyway, I'm looking forward to posting that one and seeing what you guys think of that interview. That's coming up here here in a couple of days. We'll probably do it Monday, Tuesday, something like that. All right. Silver and gold headed lower by year end. Why would that be? Like I could see if like say all of a sudden there was no recession idea, everybody's happy, there's no problems, no economic issues. Then I could see like maybe gold and silver going down, because what's going to happen is that people aren't going to be worried. And right now, there's a lot of worry. There's so much like uncertainty out there that nobody knows where to go. And since there was like this horrible narrative, like I'm not saying horrible, I mean, it was like, what do I care about like what the condition of it is? There was this huge narrative of like inflation, dollar go bye-bye, like soon the whole world's going to abandon the dollar. And if you were listening to those people a year ago, you would have figured it would have happened by now, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. So what we are going to find is that there's still going to be fear out there for the dollar, especially as the countries do abandon the dollar. They need to get the dollar first in order to get out of it, which we've talked about many times. It's the whole dollar milkshake theory. So there is going to come a moment there where people are going to be in fear of getting into dollar assets, all that other stuff. And then they're also going to be fearful of their own currency. What is left? Cryptocurrencies, like they're going to get into Bitcoin, or are they going to get into gold and silver? Right? They're going to get into gold and silver. It's like history proven, right? And I was just reading, what is it, Ghana? Some little country has now told their gold miners they have to sell 20% of their gold to the bank, right? Because they're now trying to stockpile gold. Their currency is pretty much becoming worthless on the world stage. The dollar is too much for them. They can't handle the pressure anymore, and they need to move into another currency. And there's nothing else out there that's going to do it like gold. So they're telling their miners, this is it. You gotta shore up our currency here by any means necessary. And so you're selling us your product. All right, Russia hoarding a lot of gold. Everybody is really hoarding gold right now. Yeah, and I'm sure it's because of that transition. I mean, that transition going from a fiat paper currency into digital currencies, into a central bank digital currency. It's going to be a very difficult like path to go down, and there's really no way to like protect yourself from like unknowns that are going to happen without gold and silver. And like I said, for a lesser extent, cryptocurrencies, but that's not really protecting yourself because it's just too volatile. Gold and silver are really just it. There's just nothing else. I mean, and that's just from like protecting your wealth kind of thing. Ultimately, prepping is going to come down to securing your personal being, securing your food supply, securing a network of people who have skills that you don't have, right? That's an important one that a lot of people don't think about. Anyway, moving on. All right, it's called track and trace. Yeah, that's what the cryptos will do, but I don't go shopping on Black Friday. Uh-huh. All right. Well, I'm not going into that. All right. Yes, a negative slope to the yield curve hammers banks, like getting punished for risks that they've normally rewarded for taking. Yeah. So basically, a negative slope on the yield curve means that, see, like, okay, so if you can imagine, like anybody out there, if you could borrow short term and lend it out long term for a higher rate, then you can get a return off of that. So if that goes negative, you can't borrow short term and lend it out long term for a profit because you owe more on the short term than you can on the long term. It just simply takes it from an unprofitable condition. However, if you have, you know, if you have access to the Fed window and all you have to do is make loans and there is no reserve requirements and all the manipulation that takes place within the banking system that allows it to continue to exist, you know, who knows what can happen, right? I mean, I like following, like, I love following economics and I love following, like, you know, what the Fed does and the interest rates and everything that happens with it. But sometimes, you know, it even gets to a point where it was just like, God, this seems just so ridiculous at this point. You know, it's just, you know, you would like to think, is there any way that there could ever possibly be a chance at a free market? Because what I found is that it's total manipulation. And then when they want to try and fix things, they allow aspects of the free market to fix it for a little while. And then they have to, like, you know, screw it up again. And, like, you know, because basically when they raise the interest rates, that's allowing the free market to fix the conditions. Like, you know, they are manipulating the conditions and now they need the free market to fix it, you know, and that's when they allow the interest rates to rise. You know, the unwinding of the balance sheet, I think about that. That's another thing, like with the mortgage-backed securities. I've talked about this a few times. You know, when the Federal Reserve said that they were going to unwind the mortgage-backed securities and allow them to come off the balance sheet, that, I mean, that had people like, oh man, interest rates are going to go to the moon, which they kind of did. I mean, interest rates are pretty high. But between that 7 to 8%, like that seems to be where they go to, even if the Federal Reserve is unwinding the balance sheet, even if they do continue to raise the interest rates, I don't see them really going much higher than that because of the pool of mortgage-backed securities that are available for investors to buy. That's shrinking, right? There's less refinancing, there's less mortgages being issued for purchasing of homes. And so the available mortgage-backed securities for investors to buy keeps getting smaller, right? And so even if the Federal Reserve is unwinding these mortgage-backed securities into that pool of mortgage-backed securities for investors to buy, it's continuing to shrink. And, well, I shouldn't say it's continuing to shrink because I don't know how much exactly the Fed intends on ramping up or decreasing their mortgage-backed securities. At this moment, it's a much smaller market than it was during, say, like the pandemic when everybody was refinancing. So the conditions today are far different than they were a year ago. And you can really tell that by all the mortgage backs or by all the, what is it, the people who work in the finance, all the mortgage lenders and stuff getting laid off and, you know, losing their jobs and stuff. All right. Hey, thank you very much, Matthew, for the $10. Thank you to Simon, a great patriot. We could talk for hours. Appreciated you and all that you do. Thanks for all the work you do for us. Well, thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate it. And that was an excellent talk we had this afternoon. It was so funny. It was like, as soon as I got home, because I tell you guys, Mom just loves Lumberjack Landlord. She says that if she had it all to do over again, she would have listened to his information before she started diving into property and real estate. She said that if she had his information that he is giving away for free on his YouTube channel, all the stuff that she's gathered from him, that she would have done far better and would have had many less headaches that she had to deal with by just having listened to his information. She really appreciates his stuff. I've been to Holland, not so what too different besides the heart. I've been to Holland, not so what is different besides the heart. I must be talking to somebody else. Okay. I guess you're talking the all-nighter. All right. Let's see here. Uneducated Economist. Did you see the news about auto loan defaults and repos increasing? Um, I did, but I have not gone and looked at any of the detailed information on it. From what I can gather, it's still like dramatically low comparatively, like in a historical chart. Although, like increases, especially when people use numbers, like in percentages, can really look pretty dramatic. In fact, I think there was an article that I was reading actually about Lumberjack Landlord where he was talking about delinquencies. Lumberjack Landlord has 135 rentals. So, I mean, this dude really knows his stuff. So, anyway, what he was talking about the delinquency rate that he's experiencing. He says it's gone up like, what was it, 300%. Like 300% increase in the delinquency rates amongst all his 135 rentals, which is like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, dude, what are you going to do? He said it went from 1 to 3. Like it went from 1 delinquency to 3. So it's just like a 300% increase. Sounds dramatic, but it was 3 out of all his properties. Now, if you have 5 properties, that would be devastating. But he's able to absorb it with the rest of them. And I always think about like percentages when it comes to like statistics when people are giving those out. I always think about like a 50% loss takes 100% increase to break even. You've got to think about it. Where's the number that you're talking about from the percentage point of view? Is anyone worth the paper they represent? I guess you are if you want to get more paper again. Like if you want to be represented by more paper, you're like your credit score, right? Like how worthy are you of paying back your loans? That's says a lot. All right. Similar tale here. I have a personal friend who runs a 23% car loan and 34% car loan for terrible credit people, and the X% increase is huge, but like you say, it's 2 to 6% equals 300% increase, right? It's always about like, the percentage. It always seems so big and dramatic. 150% increase, and you're thinking, well, that, it means I mean, it went from 10 to, 25 or whatever, it's just like, it's not, sometimes you just have to kind of look at the number and think about like, where is it you're starting from? That's another thing, like profit margins. Like people have a tendency to misunderstand like margin as opposed to markup. Like, it's hard to explain because it's easier to explain if you're trying to show somebody how to do a sale. But a 40% markup is different from a 40% margin. A 40% markup is when you take like $100 and you mark it up to 140. A 40% margin is when you take $100 and you mark it up to 167.50. Because if you take it to 167.50 and then you take 40% away from that number, you'll end up at 100. So that's something to think about. Like a margin is different from a markup. And that's how kind of the margin works. Anyway, moving on. 252 of you, 157 likes. Go ahead and hit that like button for me, guys. We'll get more people out here commenting because we always love these comments. How to Lie with Statistics. Good book. Oh, yeah, that would be a good one. That's something that I really want to do. I really want to start reading books. And I mean, I told my wife, like, we should sit down for an hour a day and, like, just, even if I only can get through a page or two, just read for an hour back and forth because she's getting into the economics. She actually likes reading some of the economic books with me if I can stay with them long enough. But I would love to start reading books, and it would be fun to have like a book of the month or something that we were like reading or reviewing or something like that. And so that way I can actually talk about more than just Cantillon's essay. You know? All right. Used to read newspapers back to front. Not a sports fan years ago. Articles that were small made the most boom, all about timing. Yeah. Whoa, what's that? Is that a troll? I don't know who that is. Okay, let's do it. Start a Discord. Yeah, that'd be fun, huh? How come we have record Black Friday? Where does the money come from? Credit cards? Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems right now that there's still a lot of savings that are sitting in people's accounts. So, I mean, the record amount of spending still, I still have to wonder about that. It's just like how much of that is coming from necessities on top of like trying to, you know, get ready for gift giving, almost finished my Reno, then up for sale my house, then I'll buy back in a year. Yes, record credit card currently. Yeah. Reading while listening to the audio book I hear is great help. Yeah, I tried doing that with Currency Wars. I think I tried doing that with Currency Wars, and I don't know. There was something like I still like got lost in it. It's something about it's something about like a concentration thing. Like what ends up happening is like I'll be reading something and I'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool, and I'll think about something I'm reading. And then it's like my imagination is taken off on that while my eyes continue to read the words, right? But yet my mind, my imagination is just like, wow, that would be pretty cool. And yet my still tracking the words with my eyes. I'll get through the page and then realize, oh shit, what the hell did I just read? And I'll go back and read it and realize I did read it, right? I mean, like I remember reading the stuff, but like immediately, like soon as I get to the bottom of the page, I can't recall what it is that I just read. So it's like even doing that, like even listening and trying to read at the same time it's just like it's this concentration thing. So I got like 10 minutes. Like I can do it for 10 minutes and then boom, like I just started wandering from that point on. That's why articles are so awesome for me. Or like the Fed speeches, those are pretty good too. I can usually break those into like two sections and get through those. All right. My mind wanders too. I still get half of it. Yeah, it's like, you know, um, I do have to say it's getting better though. Like the more I do read, like the longer, like I try to force myself to go through it. Like as I notice like the drifting starting to happen, like I'll pause for a second and just sit there until I can like actually get my concentration back, and then I'll continue on reading again. Um, so I've been trying to do some tricks just to kind of plow through it, just to continue with it. But yeah, it's weird to think I got this far without reading any books, isn't it? Huh? All right. And Ken Griffin will most likely be Oh, yeah. Secretary Treasury. Let's see here. Okay. It was especially bad in college when reading textbooks. Oh yeah. As an ADHD person, I find I have the same issues. Yep. When I study, I do 15 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Yep. 15 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Yeah. Hey, Yui. And it's funny because somebody actually sent me a book, like How to Be a Better Reader or something like that. I can't remember what the title of the book was. And I'm like, oh man, I really need to read that. That way I can read all these books. And I didn't read that book either. All right. Hey, Yui. I'm in Northeast US and went to local Home Depot the other day. No 4x4s were available and the 2x4s were all crap. What's going on? Um, I don't know about your 4x4s there. Like the only thing that I have been missing out of my yard is 2x6 outdoor decking, like the pressure treated without the incisor marks. So I'm missing some of that stuff that I haven't been able to get for like 2 months now. It's really weird. And then the other thing that I came up in a hard supply to find was some two by framing material on the wider widths, like the 2x12. Those ones came up in a little bit of a short supply. Excuse me, came up in a short supply, but everything else seems to be pretty well available. So I don't know what's going on up there in the northeastern part of things. I know Keta with the conversation, and like I said, that's going to be if you want a lot of if you want all the information when it comes to lumber, come back to the channel here and check for Keta's interview. She'll give you all the information you need. But but from what I understand, there is a lot of mill curtailment taking place right now. So there's going to be an inventory depletion tightening up, and we're suspecting that somewhere around the beginning of the year. Um, I think she was saying somewhere around February is when she wants to do another interview to do the update to the information that she was giving out, that we were talking about yesterday. So I would come back and check for her interview earlier this week, or that's going to come out here in the next week, like Monday or something like that, day after tomorrow. And then again in February we'll do an update to that one and see where we're at on lumber. But right now, I think is an awesome time to buy lumber. So if you got a project, you're looking for framing material, you need plywood, I wouldn't hesitate. Right now is probably your time to buy. There's mill curtailments being announced all over the place, including plywood mill curtailments. I still have yet to stock OSB in my yard since the pandemic kicked in. It's been like, what, 2, 3 years almost since I've had a unit of half-inch wafer wood OSB, simply because the price of it is so expensive. There's no way I can compete with the big box stores. So we just pretty much just stock the plywood right now, and that's been the case for, like I said, like 2 years, and I don't see any change to that. All right. All right. Sam Bankman-Fried tweeted what happened from Hillary Clinton. Keta's mean? She's mean? Keta's not mean. She's Keta's cool as hell. How's she mean? I didn't get anything mean from her. All right. We all own nothing and be happy. So what if you already don't own anything? Are you just gonna be happy? That'd be cool. I mean, I guess I'm starting to be pretty happy. Like I was wondering, I was just like, man, what is happiness? Like, what makes you happy? Didn't we do a video on what is happiness? I got to go back and review what I said on that. I think I did. I think if I haven't done a video on what is happiness, I got to go back and look at what is happiness. Do a video on that one, because like I wonder sometimes, I think about it as just like, I see these people out there and like they're so excited over their, like, I don't know, their new car or something like that, and I'm like, yeah, man, that is pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, they're just super pumped, and I'm like, I wouldn't be that way. Like I'd be excited. I'd be like, man, this is really cool. I'm really happy to have a car, but like I wouldn't feel like lottery winning kind of feeling off of buying a new car. Like that doesn't. In fact, I feel the opposite of that. I'd be like, man, I bought this damn new car. Super waste of money, expensive bastard. Anyway. No name. Yep, working 24-hour shifts as a paramedic. I was straight zombie mode. Anytime off was just R&R. Hard on the girlfriend and the little one, but got through it. Yeah, yeah. Any downside to buying short-term T-bills? Probably not. Not on short-term T-bills, because you're just going to get your cash back anyway. And really, I don't see a whole lot that is going to be like your awesome buying opportunity happening in the next 6 months to a year. Like I think after that is really where your buying opportunity is going to be the best. Because really what you need is you need a recession to come in. You need like a bunch of people to get unemployed. And then you need them to start losing all their stuff and their mind and, crying and, blaming everybody but themselves for the condition that they're in. And when you see that, then you can go out there and start spending your money on stuff. Like I wouldn't be in T-bills at that point. I would much rather be in cash. I hate to put it that way, but that's just the unfortunate case, right? You got to be You know, you buy when there's blood in the streets and be greedy when people are fearful. All right, like small businesses. 4x4 8 treated is $10 here at the local Lowe's. And where is that? North Carolina. It's come down a lot. Sounds like me during salmon season, 20-hour days every day. I can imagine that all-nighter. All right. Your thoughts on fixed MYGA annuities as a place make decent interest? Um, I don't know. Like mom was even asking me today about, like, the T-bills, or, short-term treasuries, for the most part, loaning money to the government for, what seems to be the best interest rates that we have ever had a chance to have in a long time. Um, so I don't know. That's going to lure a lot of people into those things. And once you're into them, then you have to wait for maturity, right? Or, I mean, you could find that interest rates fall and that you would be able to sell them for a profit. But for the most part, you're taking your cash and you're going to park it there and basically just wait until it matures, and then you'll get it back. And really, even if you had, like, say, let's take $10,000 for example, because that's a lot of money, right? I mean, $100,000, and you don't really need that for the next year. I mean, I don't know if you should be really following this channel, right, for information on it. I'm just kind of going for the little guy who, like me, who might be in my condition. But, like, let's say you had $10,000, right? And you don't know what to do with it. You're scared of the stock market. You don't really know about real estate. You don't want to jump into that game. But you hear all this stuff about inflation, and you're scared about keeping it in cash. So you'd like to get some sort of return, so at least you have some sort of protection away from the inflation part of things. And that's where, like, government issued bonds really is very attractive to people. But then you have to also think that you are locking that up in there, right? So if there's any opportunity for between now and then in which that you wanted that cash again, you would have to sell it and take somewhat of a loss if you don't wait for maturity on it. Or be fortunate enough that interest rates have fallen and the value of it goes up, or the price of it goes up, that you can sell it for. But either way, if you have $10,000 and you put it towards a treasury right now, you're going to get like $400 next year. Like, I don't know. Is that the chance you want to take? I mean, for a $400 profit? I mean, I guess, like, if you had nothing to do with it and you really didn't want to hold on to cash, okay, yeah, I guess, sure. But really, to me, like, that's a hell of a chance, or not even a chance. I mean, that's not a risk. It's like, a guarantee return. But to me, it's like, it's not exactly like an awesome return or something like that. Like, I would rather put $10,000, or, I mean, I'd rather take $1,000 and put it towards Bitcoin and have a chance of it going to $400, and then being like, hey, how I got, I got $400 off $1,000 worth of Bitcoin move. But $10,000 towards the U.S. government for them to borrow it for you to get a $400 return, doesn't seem that great. Like, I'm like, I think there's better. I think there's better fish out there to go for. Did I just get a huge super chat? I did, man. Thank you so much, Joe, for the 66, man. That is so nice of you. Banks are banks of a river. Currency is a current. If it doesn't flow through you, what's the point? Should you sit on your money or spend it on responsibility? I am sitting on money, so I do not go in debt. Rest in peace. Either way, I guess I'm 50-50. Haha. I'm going to have to read that again here in a second. Joe writes cryptic here. All right. Thank you so much for that 66. It's very nice of you, man. I love the support that you guys offer me, man. It's just, it's so touching every time I see it. All right. Andrew Basting 6 for the $4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. Thank you for your content. I've been parked in cash since May. Thoughts on what percent of cash should be in physical gold? Um, well, I I don't know, because I don't really give investment advice in such fashions. Like, I think that's something that you need to figure out for yourself, like what it is that you are looking for to try and protect. Like, are you using the gold and silver to try and gain wealth? Like, you're anticipating that you're going to be able to sell it into the future for a higher price? That, like, I mean, people hate it when I say this, but that greater fool theory, buy it cheap, sell it high. So, I mean, if that's what you're looking to do out of it, then, that's really going to be more of an investment. That's your own strategy. If you're looking to do like insurance policy, something that's going to give you, something that you have physical in your hand, something that you can sleep at night knowing that you have something that's away from the third party. I I don't know. Like, I'm guessing 100 ounces per person, right? That's a nice safety net. It's a, security thing. It's not much, but it is a little bit between you and the family. If it's just you, you might want to consider a little bit more, but if between you and the family, that's a fairly decent amount. Um, I also, that was kind of like one of the goals that I had strived for, was to try and acquire 100 ounces for each member of my family. Um, it took forever, to do it. And even still, I don't even know if I'm quite there yet on it. But it's like the amount of silver that you would need to protect yourself is really, it's questionable on how much it is for what it is that you're trying to do with it. Again, like, I thought, 100 ounces per person seems like, a reasonable amount. Uh, let's read Joe's comment again. All right. Banks are banks of a river. Currency is a current. If it doesn't flow through you, what's the point? Should you sit on your money or spend it on responsibility? I am sitting on money, so I don't go into debt. So I do not go in debt. Rest in peace either way. I guess I'm 50-50. Haha. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, man. All right. I need 100 ounces of gold. Now, yeah, 100 ounces of gold would be a lot. Like, I don't know. To me, that's like far too much. That's not like an insurance policy anymore. I mean, I don't know, unless you got like, millions of dollars. You got millions of dollars, and I guess that probably wouldn't seem like a lot. But to me, that would be everything in the entire world, to me. And that would be a lot, to pretty much the same for a lot of people out there. Um, and I don't really think that would be much of an insurance policy, really. Like, that would be like trying to secure like generational type of, something wealth. Like, I mean, generational wealth to some people is like hundreds of millions of dollars, but to somebody passing on something that is worth like $200,000 like that, that's kind of like generational things that you do. That's not really protecting yourself, not in my opinion anyway. All right, emergency fund is smart. Yep. Cool hoodie, Smurf. I like the cheddar. Huh. All right. I'm just being silly. Gold spot is about 17.50 an ounce right now. Wow. Let's see here. I can't find any metals without a big premium. Yeah, I can't either. Um, Although, hey, somebody wrote dime there. I was just about ready to talk about that. I did find a silver dime in the change the other day, which was pretty cool. And it's funny because there's another guy who I work with, Dan, and Dan, he is on the hunt for silver change as well. And so it's funny because we're always like, rifling through the change, trying to figure, trying to find those silver coins or the old wheat pennies or something like that. And I found a silver dime in 1952 the other day, and I showed him. I'm like, hey, that's pretty, check it out. It was kind of worn out, but hey, that's pretty cool. And then I took a piece of Scotch tape and I taped it, just on both sides with a piece of Scotch tape. And I said, I'm tired of losing these things in my change. And he was like, dude, that is such a good idea. And I was just like, yeah, it is. Because what ends up happening is you find this silver dime and you don't know what to do with it, right? So you stick it in your pocket and you're like, okay, I'll remember to stick it with my, in my stash when I get home. And then you totally forget and you throw it in your change and then it ends up back out there in circulation. But you throw a little piece of tape on there and then you can remember that it's in your pocket. Why are dimes so thin in America? I don't know. All right. Well, Scarlett can open up a box of silver or a box of Confederate paper dollars. Okay. You are working on Saturday? Well, I didn't work my day job, but yeah, I kind of work every day. Like I do something like I'm the only time that I really feel that I am not working is if I am actively trying to spend time with my family. Other than that, I am reading articles or trying to think of the next video or maybe making contact with somebody or something like that. Like, very rarely would I just be like mindlessly doing nothing. Like, that's not something I do. That's something I used to do. I used to do a lot of that. Where I mean, there was days I would, shit, there was years I wasted. So, um, but but no, like I mean, as soon as I get up, I've been trying not to look at my phone for the first hour that I'm awake in the morning, just because it's much better on my energy level to not have looked at my phone for the first hour. So I don't really do anything as far as like, reading or doing anything like that, but I will drink coffee and just think about like maybe like the previous articles that I have read, think of a video, think of like some economic theory or something like that. Just kind of just sit there and just think about things for the first hour drinking coffee and then I'll start reading articles or something like that. But yeah, if I'm spending time with the family or actively engaged in something with the family, then that's the only time I'm really feel that I am not working or trying to do something. To do. Kevin, well, you get screwed in 7-year bankruptcy in Canada. Okay, they must be talking. Okay. If credit card bank gets a judgment, they can come after your house, paid for or not. Wow. Yeah, there's some weird laws. Oh man, Joe, you're hitting. Thank you, man, so much. $133. Dude, you are so cool, man. I hope someday I get to meet you. Man, you have thrown so much support at this channel. I mean, I can't thank you enough, man. What do you have to say here? Your last video is 50-50 oh gosh. The last video of a 50-50 prediction, that was the joke in the last super chat. Oh, okay. 100 ounces in silver is for amateurs. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I guess so. Hey, I'm just talking about the guys who have like, starting off with nothing, right? All right. All right. All money is in reference to water, aka banks are the results of several rivers. Currency is a current river. Hope that helps decrypt the other chat. Yeah, and I think if I think I got you right, like if you can understand the flow of money through the system, tapping into that flow of money can give you like pretty much operating capital that is at your hands, at your fingertips at any given time. And you can use that for the benefit of just about anything your imagination can come up with. It can also screw you in a lot of ways if you take out debt in the wrong direction. But understanding how it is that you can use somebody else's capital to generate money for yourself, that's what that's what the banks do for people. And the flow of that money going through, being able to tap into that and use it for yourself, I think that's probably where Joe is probably getting at. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining it the way he would want me to, but I think that's probably what he's getting at on it. Those who understand that really well become intensely wealthy. I mean, intensely wealthy if they understand it right. Um, I thought Super Chat takes like 30%. It does take a chunk of it. I'm not sure what percentage it is. I guess I should probably look at that, but anyway. But I mean, it's like, I mean, it's part of like the platform, right? I mean, I understand like, that's like a lot, but YouTube does offer up a pretty cool platform for me to be out here and do this with, and so I mean, I would think that they would have to make some money off of it anyway. I mean, I guess they could make money off the ad revenue or whatever, but like, I don't know. Everybody's got to make money, right? Everybody's got to do it somehow, and I don't know. I mean, like, I don't feel bad. Like, I would rather have the money than for YouTube to take it, but the fact that they do take some of it, like, it's not unreasonable to me. Owen Benjamin talks about current. It's also interchangeable with terms in electricity. Current. Yeah, I've talked to Owen Benjamin. I'm gonna have him on the show too. I'm gonna line him up for an interview. I'm not sure when. I was just trying to get through like Thanksgiving and stuff, get through the weekend, and then start lining up some more of these interviews. It would be cool to do like 2 or 3 of them a week. And like my plan for it is to do interviews and then start up another channel, because I think the Uneducated Economist, sitting here in the car just doing like my Uneducated Economist stuff, really is what the brand is for this channel. Like that's it. And I think if I did interviews, I would like to do them on another channel and really do them up a little bit more professional. Like maybe get out of the car and set up like a studio and do them that way and be a little bit more professional about them. But I don't know. I kind of like doing them from the car too, because it's really, just really just shows that much more on authenticity. All right. Super chat. Tell the algo that people love what you're saying. They start popping the video up on more YouTube searches. Oh, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. No, stay in the car. Yeah, I should stay in the car. It's just, it's part of the brand now. It's so funny because so many people out there try to be impressive with what they've got going on. Look at my fancy desk and fancy background and fancy mic and fancy logos and all this fancy stuff, and like I couldn't afford any fancy anything, and so it's just like, you're just gonna get what you get out of me. Now I got to the point where I can afford fancy, and you're all like, no, don't do it, I don't want to see fancy, you just stay who you are, because, right, I mean, I'd say that I'm always the person that I'm gonna be. The only thing that I think I've really changed lately is the way that I'm carrying myself. I wear nicer clothes, and I'm trying to keep up on my physical appearance better, like keeping my hair trimmed and my face shaved. Like there was a time I didn't care about any of that. I didn't let it go for a while, whatever. I just didn't care. But I think that's probably the only change that I've actually done, is to be a little bit more aware of my actual physical appearance and just my demeanor, really, like my energy levels and stuff like that. You don't notice that stuff when you're drunk, when you're drinking all the time. You don't care about the way you look. Oh, did I get another one? Joe, man, you are so awesome. Look at this. All right, another $33. Nah, Owen does off his laptop. We like the car. As long as the audio is good, most people would not care, in my opinion. Yeah, and I kind of agree. Like, I think most of the people probably really just don't care about the car or anything that's like visually taking place within the video. It's all about the audio. It's all about like the discussion that we're having. The comment section is like pure gold, in my opinion. I have the best comment section on YouTube. And I mean, maybe I'm just saying that because it's my channel, but I just really do feel that way. But really, it is the it's not about the location. Thank you, Joe. Another 33. How dare you wear nice clothes? Well, I mean, it feels good to wear nice clothes, right? I mean, how dare I? I mean, I got a t-shirt on. I mean, that's all, right? But no, it does feel good to wear. Like I noticed it the other day because I was, I had said something to my wife about it. I'm like, when we go out into public, let's try and be a little bit more conscious of our appearance and how we look and because before it was always just like hoodies and old clothes or whatever. We just didn't pay attention to any of that stuff, and so now we do. And I'm standing like we went into a grocery store or something. We had to go in there for a little bit of stuff. And I'm standing in there and I'm like always the observer, right? I'm always like looking around to see like who's in there, what they're buying, how many kids are around, like especially in restaurants. Like I always like to see if it's couples on dates, if it's families hanging out, what they're buying. I'm always like economic things, right? Um, and so I'm looking around and I noticed, I mean, I know I was dressed a little bit better than like I would typically even dress. I just, was just dressed really nice. And I noticed nobody else was dressed at all. Like they were all just kind of clothes hanging off of them, didn't put themselves together at all, didn't even think about what it is that they grabbed. And I thought, man, that's the way I used to dress all the time. Like I never thought about what it was that I was putting on before I went out. I just put some clothes on and go. But now that I'm actually conscious of it, I feel better. Like I feel better being out in public, being like, and it's not necessarily like just like I don't even have to be like in a crowd or anything like that. Just being outside, wearing comfortable clothes that fit, that are styling, that's more of like an actual style to it instead of just hanging off you. It changes the way you feel, and that's really what I was going for when I started doing it. And it's really true. Like, there's a lot that can be said about, keeping your appearance up, keeping your clothing, clean, in style, comfortable, fitting, you know, not wholly, dirty shit like that. It makes a difference. Uh, let's see here. Oh, hey, thank you, Matthew, for the $10, man. We are here for the content. Just don't make it UE in the outhouse. That might hurt your viewership. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's some really strange people out there, bro. That might actually increase it. Of course, I would probably have to move that platform over to like OnlyFans or something, but that's weird. Anyway, yeah, you're right, man. I won't do it from the outhouse. Nice clothes have to be worn to become comfortable. Yeah, yeah, and that's, it's funny because also wearing nice clothes, which is something that I didn't really, it was a little it was a little uncomfortable, not because the clothes were uncomfortable. It was almost uncomfortable having clothes on like that. Like it wasn't me. Like I don't wear stuff like this. This isn't what I'm supposed to be putting on. And and so like yeah, it's like they have to be worn to become comfortable. Well, not only like just to break them in so that they actually fit well, so they fit comfortably, but then also to actually feel comfortable in that, in those nicer clothes, like to just be that way. I don't know. Anyway. I used to look like I just stepped off the job site, like all the time, because that's pretty much what I had done. Like I would just go right from framing to the bar to home to back to framing again. Like that's what I did. DC, man. Wow. Thank you for the 33. I see you, Joe. Let's get Simon this Goonies home. Wow. I would have to be out here like 10 hours a day, every day for the next like 5 years in order to get that Goonies home. That would be a lot of fun, though, wouldn't it? To have the Goonies house? I mean, man, that would be so much fun for the uneducated economist. And then I think my channel would probably really blow up, right? Uh, Thank you for the $33 too, DC. Thank you. All nighter, yeah, I'd probably still be. Nice clothes and thrift stores, yeah. Oh, what's funny is my wife and I, we had a long time ago, we were probably, I don't know, in our mid 20s or something, and we were dressing up for a costume contest, a Halloween costume contest, and we had shown up as Bonnie and Clyde. And she had found this kind of flower dress thing, and went and got a big cigar, and we had like these toy guns. But I found this old suit, like this really old suit, probably like I would guess from late 50s, early 60s kind of style. Not fancy at all, just a very plain suit, and it fit perfect. In fact, I think I still have it. I'm pretty sure I do, but it fit absolutely perfect, like it was made for me. But it was just really old, and it just fit that costume so perfect. Like, just having this old suit, and Sarah all dressed up in that flower dress with that big old cigar. That was a good time. Uh, you guys are so awesome. Thank you, Joe. You hit me up again here. I had holes in my shoes for a long time. I save money on those shoes for UA for UE super chats. DC, I see you. Don't be trying to match me. I'll go bank river bank. I'll go bank river up to like bankrupt. I get it. I'll keep going if I keep going. Yeah, no kidding, man. You have thrown a lot of support to this channel, bro. I really appreciate that, man. I mean, it's pretty touching, man. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's so funny. Like one day, if I do meet you, it's gonna be like, man, I won't even know what to say. All right. Uh, as long as we don't have to smell it. What are you guys talking about? Okay. Domestic systemically important banks. There we go. Thank you. That's what I was trying to come up. Systemically important banks, right? The too big to fails. I was trying to figure out why these big banks will never fail or never go unders because they're just systemically too important. The whole system would collapse if it wasn't for these banks. So they have to be here no matter what, at all costs, including I'm sorry, there was a guy going by here. I didn't know if he was going to stop and talk to me. Come at all costs, no matter what, including the taxpayers. In fact, it comes at the cost of the taxpayers. Okay, I'm wearing Hager at the moment. Hope I'm not pretentious. Um, I don't know what that is. Like I don't know what Hager is. Is that a clothing line? Like that's how bad I am. It's so funny. I am so clueless on just about everything that's like new in style and music or anything like that. Like I am just like I have no idea about TV shows or any of that stuff out there. It's funny because like even politicians, like people are talking to me about like certain politicians now, and like I really don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff, but like I know who Loretta Mester is, and Lael Brainerd and John Williams, and Bostic, all the guys from the Fed, like all the people there, like I know who they are, and what they're talking about. But anything else, like I don't know, I'm just so clueless about that stuff. All right, I am wearing shorts that don't even make a good rag right now. Yeah, that's the way most of my clothes were. Like I'm shifting through them. Like I once a month I go and try and find a few more things to get rid of and a few more things to add to my wardrobe to try and bring it a little bit more up to what I find more appealing for myself now. But it's funny because like I mean like there was a time like all my jeans had drywall mud or primer or exterior sealant, like caulking sealant or something like that. Like everything was just a mess. Like all my clothes were just hammered ugly. All right, moving on. Finally, I caught you live. Love this channel. Been following you for years. Keep up the great work. Yeah, well, thank you very much, Soilwork 1990. I really appreciate it, man. I'm glad you've been with me for the last couple of years. I know a lot of you have like followed the channel pretty much since I started. In fact, I met a guy the other day who was pretty cool because I'm stepping out of the grocery store, and I'm walking to my car, and this guy, he's kind of from in his car, he's like, hey, I know you. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's going on? And he was just like, hey man, I want to let you know I have been following you since like the early days. And I'm like, oh wow, since like back in 2017. He goes, yeah, a little bit into 2018, but yeah, since the early days. And I said, cool, man. So you live around here or whatever? And he's like, no, I'm from Seattle. I just happen to be down here, and that's cool that I caught you. And so I always get a kick out of that anytime that happens. And it's starting to happen a little bit more, of course, when you get as popular as I've gotten. And, some of the videos have really, done quite well. Some of the lumber videos I've done. So I know the YouTube macroeconomic subculture out there is quite extensive, and I know that anywhere I go now, the chances of somebody recognizing who I am is a good possibility. And that is so weird to me. Like, I never thought that I would ever have something in my life like that, where I would be going through the airport and somebody recognize me from the YouTube channel. Um, it really tripped my sister out when that happened. We were actually going opposite directions on the escalator, and somebody's like, hey, I know you, I love your channel. And my sister Crystal was just like, what, did that just really happen? And I'm like, yeah, it does happen. I just out in the middle of nowhere and people will recognize me. And man, what a weird thing to have happen to you. All right. How come silver has been doing so poorly the last several months? I'd have to ask that same question. Why has it done so poorly since 2011? Like, it's never really recovered. It went from $50 an ounce down into the teens, and it popped back up over $20 for a little bit. Like, it's barely holding above 20 now. So why has it done so poorly now? Well, why has it done so poorly for the last 12 years? Why has it done so poorly since 1980? I mean, it really has to come down to that paper derivatives market. It comes down to 150 or more paper ounces for every physical ounce that's out there. So right now, if you're buying into silver thinking that you're going to be making it rich because silver is super undervalued and one day it's going to be worth $500 an ounce, only if they quit doing the paper market. Like, I don't see that happening. Now, to me, silver is an excellent place to go into. So I'm not trying to like, hey, don't go into silver. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I encourage people to buy into silver, but I'm not buying it for an investment. I buy it for insurance, and that's the reason why I get into it. All right. People recognize me as just a YouTube commenter. That's a trip. All nighter, you're everywhere, bro. You're impressive. Like, I don't like I go and watch a video and all nighter's there. Like, no matter what video it is, if it had anything to do with money and it was a reasonably popular YouTuber, your comments there, man. You're everywhere, dude. You're like the super viewer or something, man. You need like your own like you need your own like silver play button for viewers. All right. And I still get work done. Yeah, that's impressive on top of it all, man. He's like, I can understand if you're like stuck in mom's basement or something, but you're a hardworking dude. And so it's like, on top of that. That's like, I love it, man. I think that's great. All right. I've got old sterling silverware. Hey, having old silverware like that is an excellent place to have some wealth. I mean, for one, it's cool because it's artistic. It's something that you can actually use if you wanted to, and it's worth money. So, yeah, I mean, that has everything that I would love about silver is being something that's actually useful, like silverware. All right. True meaning of words are backwards. Bank, nab. All right. Railroad shutdown on the 9th has me a quiver. Apologies for pointing out the elephant in the room. Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? it certainly seems that there's going to be an event that takes place here with these railroads, and already, like, with the issues that have transpired over the last year, that is not going to do well. But I try not to be like, this is going to definitely be the case in which that happens. Like, okay, for example, like these student loans. Everybody asked me, it was just like, okay, what's going to happen with student loans? And I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, they can't do it, right? And so then the passes, everybody's like, hey, they're getting rid of all these, like, all these student loans are going to go away and stuff. And I'm like, well, let's see it. Like, let's see it happen. Let's see it happen for everybody, not just for a handful of people. Let's see it happen on a way that, like, everybody would be confident that it's actually going to take place. It isn't going to work like that. It's not going to go down. So I think about it in the same fashion of that. Like, we need to see it happen and then figure out what it is that's taking place at that point. But you're right, it's not going to be good. Like, I can't imagine anything good from a shutdown of the rails. Like, shutdowns of the rails or trucking or freights, like these freight liners that are all out here. Anything that gets shut down like that, and you're talking a severing of the supply chain. That's what that is. And so when I talk about real shortages, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to pretend to imagine what's going to happen. Wow, you guys, Joe, man, don't go into debt, man. Doing this for me. You're so awesome. All right, what if you are in mom's basement but no debt? Is that better than not being in mom's basement with 20,000 in debt? No, it would be better to be in mom's basement with no debt. Unless you have 20,000, unless your $200,000 worth of debt is paying you, right? So if you have $20,000 worth of burden, then yeah, living in mom's basement is a million times better than taking on, with no debt, than taking on debt. Sorry, bro, do you live in mom's basement? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been in some really nice basements. In fact, I remodeled the basement. I was so bummed. They had us tear out this basement that had been completely, like, done up in, like, the late 60s. And this was, like, the, like, swingers pad, if there was ever a swingers pad. I couldn't believe it. Like, there was this long couch sectional thing that went for, like, I mean, you could seat like 20 people on this couch, no kidding. And then it had like these two levels, so like this upper level, like a step up that was about, I don't know, 12 inches or so. So I think it was two steps up to it. Had this really badass bar with it, and this huge fireplace, and this big, like, disco ball in the middle of this dance floor. And this was all down in this basement. And I'm like, oh man, you cannot get rid of this. And then we tore it all out. Yeah. What a bummer. You don't find stuff like that anymore, right? Okay. Joe, and 9/11, pay off all student loans. No, all loans. I don't have loans, but I want everyone to have no debt. Yeah. I'm pretty much in agreement with that. Like, I am not, I mean, I shouldn't say that I'm not interested in taking out debt. I'm not interested in taking out, like, any kind of personal debt. Like, I would take out debt to buy income property or something like that. That's when I would move into debt, but I'm not taking out personal loan debt kind of things. Like, if I can't afford to buy the 2023 Camaro with cash, then I'm not going to get one. Like, and I'm going to have a hard time relinquishing that much cash at once for a 2023 Camaro. So I'm going to have to really, like, either do something really fabulous to try and come up with a lot of cash, or be stuck in the Corolla, right? And it's not really stuck in the Corolla, just I get to drive the Corolla. Great minds think alike. I'm loving this stream. Thanks, All Nighter. Yeah, I love doing these live streams. And what I find more interesting about it is, like, I'll be sitting here babbling, and I'll go in and read the comments, and you guys are talking about stuff that I'm not even talking about. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm just talking to myself over here, but all right. Let's see here. Wife is wife's not if it's an investment property. You are house hacking. Let's see. The friend of mine with 20% and 30% car loan business grew up in mom's basement that had a movie theater, so it's not always terrible. Yeah, that's true. Joe, man, thank you. Just one right after the other here, bro. No, I live in an apartment in Pennsylvania. That's what I thought. With my wife and kid. My mom lives two doors down. Great babysitter when you need her. Hey, that's awesome. Like, I think about that. Like mom's staying with me right now for a while, but she travels all the time. Like, she's Hawaii or up hanging with sister or down in California or up here with me. And right now she's up here and spending time with us, and it's been pretty cool, having mom hang around again because it's been a while since she spent some time up, with the family. So here we are going through Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that, and it's neat having family gathering stuff going on again, and you know, having family close. It's important stuff. DC, thank you so much for the $5. What if you're in your mom's basement with 200,000 saved, wasted on cash? Yeah. Um, okay, I don't think you should have $200,000 in cash. Like, if you have that much cash, then yeah, you should probably be doing something with it. Um, if you have $200,000 worth of cash, you really should like get out of the basement, watch lumberjack landlords how to do house hacking stuff. Get somebody else to move into your house that you're buying so that you don't have to make the payment on it, and live in your own basement for nothing and then have your $200,000 cash. I don't know. That's a lot of cash. I can't imagine having that much. I would be doing something different with that. I would be like $50,000 cash might be something. All right. Tell mom that I had everyone here says hi. That I and everyone. There we go. Wage, no, we can see your BS. Huh. Wage slave, you're good. What a wage slave. Am I banned from UE chat? I don't think so. Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, all nighters on it, so I don't think Lord Humongous did anything. I haven't seen Lord Humongous in a while. And if Scratchy would pop up, I would make him a moderator too. Let's see here. How much do you save until you spend it on a house? Wow. I don't know. Like, I wanted a lot more saved before I ended up spending it on a house, but I dumped every dime I could come up with for the down payment to get into my house because I ended up like putting myself in a really bad position. So I don't know, like home ownership in this country right now is very difficult. Like, I can't imagine anybody really wanting to be a homeowner without doing it like the way, the house hacking way, where you figure out a way that you can get somebody else to make your payments. But buying a house and then going to a day job for the rest of your life to try and pay it off is just like, that seems like it seems like a terrible idea, and I just don't know how many people out there could actually make a success out of that. Um, like already, I mean, I don't know what the average income has to be in order to afford a house, but it's like, isn't it like something like $100,000 a year or something? It's just some ridiculous amount. And I think about like what my day job provides, and if it was just my day job that my wife and I, like my day job and her day job, we wouldn't make it. Like, we would not make it. And not in my area. I mean, I live in kind of it didn't used to be this way, but now it's a kind of a rich area. At least it's become that way over the last 5-10 years or so. But if it wasn't for YouTube, my day jobs wouldn't cut it. Like I couldn't have bought a house. I couldn't live here. I would have to have moved away. I mean, completely, and found something completely different to do. And man, that like to try and think of like what it would have been like if I didn't have YouTube at that time. I don't know. Like I don't know what it would have been like. My life would not be anything like this. I can tell you that. You know. All right. Bitcoin to $10. I wish. If it went to $10, I'd be all over it. All right. Matthew with the $10. Joe R. I will answer that on my live stream tomorrow. That is an excellent question. Yeah. So everybody who's on the live stream, we got 225 of you right now. Lumberjack Landlord is going to do his live stream tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern time. So be sure and check out his live stream. I'm going to be there for it as well. So I'm going to get as many people right now who are listening to tune into that one tomorrow. All right. Joe again with the 911. What do you think of interest debt? Another chat for your mortgage. Death grip. What do you think of interest debt? I'm not sure. Interest debt. Couldn't afford a house I am living in. I bought it now. Feel you, Yui. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to find and follow Lumberjack. Yeah, I encourage everybody to go and find Lumberjack. I mean, like I said, from somebody who was very negative about the real estate market, like listening to Lumberjack Landlord for even just a short time, at least got me to stop feeling so negative. All right. And then as mom tuned in and started listening, I mean, because she was in the game for a long time. Like, I mean, since I was like in my 20s, I remember mom having rental properties, like is what she had done. And, she, did well at sometimes, but for the most part, she found a lot of headaches and frustrations from it. And listening to Lumberjack Landlord over the last, few weeks and months, listening to his content, she was like, this guy is really good. I wish I had been listening to somebody like him when I was playing in this game. I would have done so much better. And so like his stuff is like it's where you need to be. It's like, especially if you're trying to get into this game, that's the information he's trying to get out is for other people to do this kind of thing. So yeah, don't pass that up. All right, DC, $10. Thank you so much, man. You guys are just killing it tonight. I just can't believe it. Been trucking since the COVID. Have about 200,000 saved. Holy moly. Have gold and silver, eliminated all debt and expenses, just waiting on some opportunity. Futures trading oil in the meantime. Wow. Well, it sounds like you got a path. It sounds like you know what you're doing there. Man, that's a great position to be in. It's so cool to hear about that, to hear so many people, because like, when you're in like the worst of it, you kind of just think the rest of the world is that way too. Um, and really like you think the rest of the world is like this horrible, like ugly place, especially like being in debt and in alcohol and all that other stuff. And then like one day you get out of all that stuff and then you look around and you're like, man, this world really isn't that bad. Like the day that I was out of debt, like I was at zero. I had no money, no savings, no debts, no anything. Like my cars were just barely running, whatever. But I was like at zero. And it was the best feeling in the entire world. Like I had never felt so good as I did that day, when I finally got clear of all that stuff. And like everything was better out there. Like music sounded better, all the smells were doing better, like the view that I have of the river was better, like everything was awesome at that point. And I know a lot of it has to do with the stress of just being under that burden of debt. And I can see why Joe wants everybody out of it, because it would be a much better world if we were. Joe's doing it again, man. Uh, Thank you, man. $33. You take out a loan and debt money you do not have, and then it charge interest 6%, the current rate. What do you think about that? Is that fair or could that be destructive? You take out a loan and debt, right? You take out your money that you don't have, and then it charges you interest 6%. Well, is it fair? Um, yeah. I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, I don't think there's anything like unfair about that. Um, I think it's also fair that you can take out a loan for 6%, hopefully put it towards an investment that pays you 10% and keep the difference in between, and you don't use any of your money to make money. I think that's fair too. And I think people who are really, really good at that, who seem to make it like look just terribly easy and piss a lot of people off because of how easy they do make it look. I'm not saying that about you, Joe. I'm talking about like other people. Um, but I see when people complain about that, that's just their misunderstanding of the system and not being able to do it themselves. And so therefore, if they can't do it, then other people shouldn't. Um, I don't really have a problem with debt, like the debt itself. What I have a problem is people not understanding what they are doing with their debt and then want to be bailed out for it. Like I I don't think that you should be bailed out. Like you should pay consequences for debt. Like if you take it out, then you have to pay it back or suffer the consequences from it. I mean, I suffered the consequences from trying to buy a house and couldn't afford to make the payments on it, and then ended up walking away from it and dealing with 10 years of the mess that it had created for my life. I mean, I paid the consequences for it. I learned my lesson. I won't do that again. Like I will not do that again. You know, but if people don't learn the lessons from it, then they'll just do it again. I don't know. Is that kind of what you wanted? I don't know. Thank you for the $33, man. You're awesome. All right, gig driver, $1.99. Thank you so much. Lumberjack is 100 times better than bigger pockets. Um, I wouldn't know. Because I don't listen to bigger pockets, or at least I haven't. But all I'm going off of is the information that I've heard, and then the stuff that like from what my mom has said, from somebody who's been in the game who wished she had that information when she was playing. Yeah, that's the information that I got. So I know he's not trying to sell me anything, right? Which is pretty cool because most people out here on YouTube are trying to sell you something. Um, Even like I don't think there's anybody out there that I have found that doesn't have something for sale. Like I really like even Lumberjack Landlord has something for sale, right? I mean, you got his business and everything else. And I mean, I have something for sale. It's my YouTube channel and what I'm doing out here. I mean, it's not necessarily like, here's your product, give me my money, but it is something that we're selling. I mean, we're selling ourselves essentially. But when you're trying to sell something with like by gimmick, like you buy it into my program because if you don't, then you're going to lose everything or you're going to become fabulously wealthy if you do or something like that. That's not the same thing. All right. I enjoyed your video on inflation yesterday. Well, thank you. Yeah. 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 And Lumberjack Landlord is genuine AF. Yeah, he is all-nighter. All right. What about living in a shed? Um, you know, to be honest with you, I'd live in my car. Like I would if I had like a massive amount of inflow of money and I had no responsibilities as far as like family or anything like that or trying to I don't know. Like I like I don't see the point of having a house. Like I would like if I had like a dream condition to be in, if I was like a young man trying to figure it out, like I would live in a car, like a van RV kind of thing, and I would try to accumulate as many rental properties as I could possibly get my hands on. And that's the way. And I would live on the property. Like it's like whatever properties I was buying. Like that's the way I would like, and just have as many as I could. And at the end of it, like, still live in a van and have, the 135 houses or something like that. That's the way, like, I could see that being like the perfect scenario. And then, do whatever you want for the rest, for the remainder of it. Too many people try too hard to acquire the stuff by going into debt. Like they just want to get it all, have it, and then pay for it all throughout their life. And then realize that, they get halfway through it and it's just too much of a burden and they can't handle it anymore. And then issues happen, divorce or a death in the family, you lose your job or something, and then you can't keep up. And it's all over, right? So staying out of that situation, that's like the important thing. All right, my tiny home was a shed for the first 2 months of life while I was fishing. Then I came back and finished it up nice. Yeah, I mean, I watched a buddy of mine. He took this single wide trailer, and it wasn't much of a trailer at all. And he started building like little additions. Like the first addition on it was just like this plywood box that he just basically, it was pretty good size. I mean, it was like, I don't know, 12 by 20 or so, but it wasn't much. And it was just basically built alongside of his single wide trailer. And then over the course of a year or two, he finally, he had it roofed and sided and insulated and then put some sheetrock in there and stuff like that. And then he had this big room like built onto the side of his single wide. And that's where he put his wood stove. He put it out there and would heat up that room so it wasn't like in the living room, that tiny little living room that he had. And then like a couple years later, he built another one on the other side. And then pretty soon he had like all this square footage attached to this little tiny single wide trailer. And I asked him, how much did you spend on all that? And he goes, I don't even know. Like, he just pieced it together a little bit at a time, and that's how he did it, So, yeah, living in a shack is just fine. There ain't nothing wrong with it. 66 again from Joe, man. You guys are something else. I disagree. A big corporation will get a bailout, and the average house owner will not. Yeah, that's true. There we go. Okay. However, it is all an offer, and if the house owner takes the loan, it's on them. They will never get a bailout. I'm pro all bailouts. Last one. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Joe. You've been incredibly, again, man, incredibly generous with your money and support for the channel. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I agree. The big corporations will get a bailout, but the average won't. As far as they will never get a bailout, I'm pro all bailouts. Like all bailouts, like kind of like everybody gets bailed out of their house loans, or I don't know. Maybe we should discuss. We should talk someday, Joe. That would be fun. All right. My buddy was nothing but a giant whalebone carcass. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. That's why I don't want a truck payment. That's half my mortgage payment. Yeah. A shed converted to a nice livable room with an office and all like those in many homes. Yeah. Mortgage moratorium was a pretty big bailout. Yeah, that was like that was one of the reasons why I feel the house prices went up as high as they did, is simply because there was no naturally occurring foreclosures within the system during the pandemic. Like when they told everybody you don't have to make your house payment anymore, that was for people like it didn't matter. Like if all you had to do is just say that you were somewhat affected by this thing and that you didn't have to make your payment anymore, and they just basically said, okay, you don't have to worry about making your payment. Well, there should be foreclosures within any mortgage market during any time. Like, I mean, there's just naturally occurring foreclosures. People lose their jobs, death in the family. There's some circumstance that takes place and they're not able to sell the home and they can't make the payments anymore, or something happens and they're going to get foreclosed on. But during the pandemic, there wasn't. Like there pretty much was no foreclosures. Not the ones that should have taken place and the ones that, would have taken place because everybody lost their job. So no foreclosures happened. Well, if you don't have any foreclosures, then you don't have foreclosures coming onto market, like going up for auction or just becoming available. Or even people who are going to take the chance of maybe even getting out of the house by trying to sell it first before it goes into foreclosure. Like none of that stuff took place. So it zapped all the inventory that would have been taking place during that time. So that's another reason why we saw the house prices move up as high as they did. Like I don't know how many foreclosures we would have on a monthly basis in order to make up for what would typically be an average rate of foreclosures. Did I say that right? Like we have been, you would typically have foreclosures that would happen, right? So you'd have like these average monthly foreclosures. But during the pandemic, those fell, right? So I guess like what I would wonder right now is how many foreclosures would it take in order to get the average back, right? Because there would have to be a spike in foreclosures and then in order to bring it back down to that mean again, to that average, foreclosure rate. So that's really what I would kind of be curious about. It was just like, what would it take to get that average back? It would probably take a lot of foreclosures, in order to bring it up. But I don't see a lot of foreclosures coming into the future. So how long does it take? It's going to take a while, at least on the foreclosure side of stuff. Like the wave of foreclosures, I didn't see it. I mean, I thought of it coming. Like I made videos about it saying, hey, this is a possibility that is going to come. It seems likely. But then as time rolled on and people started readjusting their loans or selling their homes, there wasn't this wave of foreclosure because why would you let your house foreclose on when you could just simply sell it, right? I mean, unless you happen to buy it in the last year, most likely your house value has gone up. And that even if you couldn't make the payment, you could sell it for a profit and walk away not making payments and a profit. Anyway. Joe, I thought you said you was done, man. Thank you again for the $1.09. Last one. Not all bailouts, just from 2020 and before. I think a lot of people are getting debt. People are getting debt is bad. Yeah. Well, I agree with a lot of people getting debt is bad. I mean, I'm trying to avoid it at every cost, and that's a lot of like this whole channel is to avoid that bad debt, to avoid that consumer debt, buying fancy luxuries on debt, stuff like that. you know, Buying income property, that's a different story. But yeah, staying away from credit cards, staying away from anything that is going to be like non-productive debt. That's like if I could push that more than anything, I will. Wow, you guys are so awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Simon, exactly right. It's drastically tightened supply. Yeah, and like, and Matthew would know. I mean, this is his game. This is what he does, right? And when we see these things, like, you're trying to think, okay, if these things continue as they are, these outcomes could come from that, right? And so we thought about that. We thought for sure, man, without these foreclosures, with all these people not making their payments, at some point it's going to turn the payments back on. They're not going to be able to come up with the cash. They're not going to be able to make their payments again because they've, basically grown accustomed to not making their payments. And there's going to be a wave of foreclosures. It just didn't happen. It didn't go down like that at all. People refinanced or sold their homes. That's what happened. Completely different from what everybody was, not everybody, but what a lot of people were saying. How long have we been out here? Almost 2 hours. That's right on. You guys are so cool. How much power do I have? Oh, I got plenty of power. What time is it? It is 6 o'clock. Okay, so it's still fairly early. All right. Debt will decay you mentally. Yeah, I mean, and already, the mental deterioration within this nation is already just like, it's atrocious. And so when you add a bunch of debt on top of it, just makes the problem worse. And so I do wonder, like, if it's almost done on purpose to keep people from like really, I don't know. I don't know why it would be done on purpose for that. I mean, it's like I understand like having everybody in debt is basically making them a slave. the bounty of their effort goes to somebody else when you're paying interest. So, like, I can understand why the system is set up that way. Um, but what I don't like really get out of the whole thing, is like the way the system is set up and getting kids to take on like a lot of student loan debt, or just like never having a life in which that you were living debt free, like you have always been under the burden of having to make a payment to somebody for something for some reason, never having like a feeling, an understanding of what it is to have a life without that going on, is never provided. There's never a moment, unless you're like a little kid or something like that. But for the most part, nobody ever gets to experience that. And when you do experience it, you realize then that, man, the things that you had been thinking were completely wrong. Like, you've been thinking in the wrong direction. You put blame on things that you shouldn't have. All kinds of stuff changes when you get out of debt. Like, it's a mental deteriorating thing, just like, all-nighters saying. And once you're out of it, it's just like it's a mental healing that takes place, and you realize, man, this world is a better place. I got better, positive, non-negative thoughts taking place now, and I get to actually progress through life. Being in debt is terrible. It's a terrible thing. Like, I don't wish it upon anybody, and sometimes the lure, the appeal and the lure of a 2023 Camaro just does it for people. They can't handle it. Let's see here. Josh Brown has those good 10-minute videos. We are in the best echo chamber of echo chambers. Let's see. You have to listen to at least one mainstream channel in the repertoire. God, I cannot speak. I should take like speaking classes. All right. Or else you become crazy. For me, it's Josh Brown. You need 300,000 K foreclosures a month for 2 years to catch up. What? Are you serious? Holy crap. That seems like a lot. Like, okay, Lumberjack, Matthew, what was the average like monthly foreclosures prior to the pandemic? If we need 300 for 2 years, I can't imagine like what that would look like. So I'm just curious, what was the average rate of foreclosures? It was 125 to 150. So we're talking double the amount of what would typically be normal for 2 to 3 years. Yeah, I don't see that. I don't. Well, I mean, it could, but I don't think so. All right. I meant my buddy's single wide was a carcass, just the metal ribs left sitting on the hill. Oh, 2 years later, a nice home. He did it himself, like your friend. Yeah, I've known a few guys who have done quite well. In fact, it was kind of funny because that guy, he did it to another place before that. Before that one did, he did pretty much the same thing on another piece of property. So it's just kind of like his style of doing things. Who another guy who I thought was quite creative is this dude I used to follow. He was hanging out here in Astoria for quite a while. A friend of mine, S.O.B. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, but he was on Facebook. He was really popular there for a little bit. He had like this home, this rickshaw style home that he would pull around. He had like two handles, and he would like literally walk his little house down the street. And he pulled that sucker from Astoria, Oregon, all the way to Washington, D.C., and took his picture in front of the White House with it. I was so impressed with that guy. Like, he literally walked his house across the country it was the craziest adventure watching him do this on Facebook. I mean, every day he would get stopped by the cops, and dude is like total sovereign citizen style guy. Like, he was just like, you can't stop me from traveling. I'm like a rightful, traveler going on down and he would have the cops going, okay, whatever, just get out of here, man. So it was quite the adventure watching Ras do that. And he builds like wherever he goes. Like, he needs a shack, he starts putting his house together like wherever he's at. He landed at this pig farm just outside of town, A buddy of mine who was raising pigs, he had this pig farm going, and Ras ended up out there, and he built himself a like he had like two walls on this old trailer that had been torn down, this old like double wide trailer, and there's literally like two walls left of it, and like part of the roof. The rest of it had been like taken by an excavator or something, and he went and got some hay bales that were kind of stacked out there in the barn that had gone kind of moldy, and he stacked those things up and built two more walls and enclosed this box and closed off the roof and had a heater going on in there and had himself like a little dry space within like, I don't know, I think he had that done within like 2 days or something like that. And he was camping out in a warm spot for a few months during the winter on that pig farm. Anyway, old Ras, I like Ras. He was kind of a pain. All right. Let's see here. Thank you for doing the live tonight. I thought I was the only econ nerd at home digging for info on Saturday. No, nope, you're not the only econ nerd. There's a bunch of us. There's actually quite a few of us, and I don't know. You guys are awesome for hanging out. It is getting kind of late though. Maybe I should go and watch a movie with the family or something. What else should we talk? Is there one more question? Is there any other questions we should talk about? Keep the conversation going, or should we call it quits? Nah, everyone is an econ nerd, but most don't understand econ. That is so true. We are the coolest kind of nerds, to be fair. We are. We are certainly the coolest kind. I mean, that's the thing. Like, people asked me a long time ago, it was just like, why did you get into economics? Like, what got you motivated towards it? And really what it was is that I wanted a hobby. And I couldn't really think of I would duck hunt, but duck hunting is expensive. Like, it's really expensive to duck hunt. It's one of the most expensive like sports out there. You need a boat and equipment and decoys and all this stuff. And then what do you get? You get like, a handful of little birds. So like duck hunting is really expensive, and fishing is kind of expensive too when you think about all the equipment that you need for that. And then you can get into like, stuff like woodworking or whatever. And then I thought to myself, it's just like I've always had an interest in economics, like just kind of like old money and collecting coins and stuff like that. So I'll just make money my hobby. Like money will be the hobby. That's it. Like not necessarily. I mean, collecting it, like coin collecting, that'll be part of it, and studying economics and studying finance and studying all this stuff. And money will become my hobby, and I'll just make money my hobby. Not necessarily earning it, just the general nature of money. And yeah, that kind of worked out for me pretty well. So now like money's my hobby. And I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what it is. It's just like it's not necessarily the pursuit of it, but just understanding it and learning more about everything about it. All right. Metal detecting is fun. Yes, it is. I used to do a lot of metal detecting. In fact, I plan on getting some metal detectors for the family. That's one of the things I want to do with some YouTube money is buy some metal detectors for the family, maybe for Christmas or something like that, and then find places to take them every weekend to go and search around. I used to say when I was really big into the hobby of metal detecting, I did it for probably like 2 or 3 years. I actually sold metal detectors for a guy. But I used to tell people, there's a great big giant world out there just 6 inches below the surface, because everywhere you go, you can just about everywhere. I mean, I see people metal detecting like right along the Riverwalk right here because you never know what people might drop out there. So, all right, I want to take a metal detector to AK and find goldies here. Yeah, take it up to Alaska. Yeah, that sounds like fun. When I'm rich and famous, well, I'm already kind of famous. When I'm rich all nighter, I want to hang out with you, man. We're gonna go like I want to do the hunting and fishing and gold mining and do all that stuff, man. So like, yeah, once I finally get the money, then I'm gonna hang out with you. I'm gonna like make it a summer deal. All right. What do you think the numbers will be for retail Black Friday sales? I don't know. I mean, they're up right now, and they're probably going to be well, obviously they're record, so they're going to be pretty good. But again, I wonder like how much of that is coming out of necessities and higher prices because they don't really say like how much inventory turnover. They just talk about how much more money was spent, and it doesn't necessarily that more stuff was purchased. It just means that people have spent more money on that stuff, you know. But it could be that more stuff was purchased. All right. You got it. Whichever one of us gets rich first. Yeah. Well, okay, we'll make it a race, man, because like, men love competition. So, whoever gets rich first buys. I don't know. Stores are flush full of inventory. They really are. And when I said this a long time ago, that at some point all those container ships are going to break free and all that stuff is going to come through the system and people are going to be overloaded and you're going to find TVs and furniture and stuff like that getting incredibly cheap. And that's what we're finding. TVs are going on sale. They're, a lot cheaper than they were during the pandemic when nobody could find them. Furniture companies, like I even posted, I think it was in yesterday's video or the day before, an article to a furniture company that just fired everybody. Just like, okay, no warning, no nothing. That's it. Like even people out there, all their truck drivers out on the road, they're like, okay, those who are in the middle of their deliveries, go to the nearest distribution hub and turn in all your stuff. Everybody else, see ya, right? And that's, it's something that I could see it coming because really it comes from like the over expansion during a panic time. I mean, people are like, man, there's this huge demand. There's this overwhelming consumer demand. Produce, produce, produce. Go in there and start making more. And so they have to borrow money to make more. And then they build like a factory to make more. And then they realize, shit, nobody wanted more. It was just a severing of the supply chain. People couldn't get it, so they were panicking and now they're suffering the consequences from that. We saw. I mean, I knew it was going to happen with the masks, and then we found the article actually talking about that these mask manufacturing that there wasn't going to be a demand for it. Like you can ramp up production as much as you want during the time when there's a huge demand for it, and you will find that it'll be profitable during that time. But the moment that the demand goes away, and who the hell wants to buy a bunch of paper masks? Nobody, right? The only people who are going to buy those are going to be hospitals, surgical masks. And the hospital can really care less if they're buying an American made product. They want the cheapest thing and they're going to get it from China. So, what happens to American made surgical masks, right? Those companies start to suffer. And the only way they can stay in existence, because, you have to have a domestic supply of this stuff for national security reasons. So this paper mask company that shouldn't exist because they're not profitable now has to be subsidized by the government, or we have to put tariffs on paper surgical masks that the hospitals are buying. I mean, this is the type of stuff that happens. So like, no matter what you do, you can't win at this. This is where I keep going back to Cantillon's effect, is that once you have gone down this path of the new money coming into the system and people start diving into the luxuries, you can't fix that. There's no fixing it. I mean, it can be, I guess it could be fixed if people truly understood what it is that they had to do, but nobody wants to go through it. Nobody's going to say, yeah, I'm going to work 3 times harder and not spend any of my money on anything that is benefiting me. Like, I am only going to buy necessities and I am going to work incredibly hard. Like, nobody does that. They're going to work incredibly hard, and once they get the money, they're going to buy stuff that's fun, right? Like, who wouldn't do that? Find a job where there is zero chance of the industry going out of business. What job is that? Like a job where you have zero chance of an industry going out of business. I mean, okay, drug dealer and prostitution excluded, right? All right. So let's see here. Got a blind pallet for resale. Half of it was paper mask, and I'll give them away. Churches, power company, yeah. Undertaker, wastewater treatment. You guys got all these great jobs. All right. Slave, no problem. My next hobby for 2023. Oh, wage slave. I see you're talking to somebody. Wage slave. I get it. All right. A plumber. Yeah. Alrighty, guys, you have been so awesome. Joe is just incredible with them super chats, and DC and Matthew and everybody else. You guys are just so supportive of this channel. You know, I say it every time, but you are. Like, I can't thank you enough. I mean, I'll come out here and put out as much of my economic theories and thoughts and videos and try to keep them as entertaining as I can for you guys. If you keep sticking it around with me, I will keep coming out here and doing it. So this is very much like a two-way street relationship, you know. I mean, if you guys are getting something out of this, believe me, I am getting 5 times more. And it's not just monetary, it's the knowledge that I am getting from this. It just amazes me how much I have learned over the last few years. And even just, you know, the conversations that I have, like with, you know, talking with Matthew earlier today. I mean, there was a couple of things that he was talking about that I was just like, wow, I got to think about that one again. I got to roll this over. And when I get new information like that, that just really, you know, that's really what I'm looking for is stuff that's getting me to think about what's happening here and how I can make the best decisions for me and my family. And, you know, I'm hoping that's what everybody else is doing as well. Wage Slave, thank you very much for the $10. Go get yourself a Mickey D's. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that stuff. You know, all the super chats, the PayPal stuff, the PayPal and the Venmo, that is really appreciated. Like, you do not know how much my family loves that, because they know when they see that, because that's the only thing I use the PayPal for, is for taking my family out. And when they see that PayPal debit card come out, they know where it came from. They know that it was the UE fans who were doing that. And you know, and I always, like, you know, and I always let them know, you know, hey, this is the fans who are buying this particular meal for us today or whatever. And they're aware of that, and they do appreciate it. Yeah, when they see that blue PayPal card come out, they know it. They know that's where it's from. And I can't thank you guys enough for that, because that was something I never did for the family. Like, I would hardly ever take them out to do anything, let alone go out to eat. And so now it's like, when I take them out to eat, you know, if the kids ask for, you know, for whatever, like, you know, something, you know, a special or a side of something, you know, I always, yes, absolutely, kid, you know, and you can get dessert or whatever, you know, this is the UE fans buying this, and this is why we're doing it. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for doing that for me. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.